Hi, I'm William Stewart, co-founder of Teleios. Welcome back to our verse-by-verse study in the book of Matthew. We are in Matthew 13, a fascinating, although can be difficult to interpret chapter, but very informative. Again, my warning is that this chapter is uh, various beliefs, various interpretations have been made of this chapter, and we're trying to take a normal, literal approach in context of that time when Christ came to present the kingdom as promised in the Old Testament to the Jews, who then rejected him, as we read in Matthew 12 and really in earlier verses, but really it peaks in Matthew 12, and thus Christ takes that kingdom from them, as specified directly in Matthew 23 and 22 or 23. I'm forgetting which chapter, but he's saying this to the Pharisees: the kingdom's been taken from you, and brings in the mystery form of the kingdom, which was meaning not known in the Old Testament. He's speaking here of the times of the church after his death and resurrection. It's the spiritual form of the kingdom involving the Holy Spirit, but not the complete physical form of the kingdom, which will come at Christ's second coming, and the kingdom will be complete both spiritually and physically together. So here there are 7 parables that describe this time, not naming the church because the church has not been presented yet or defined, but it's in the church times. We come to the last of the parables today, that of the parable of the net. So it's short. Let's read it. Verse 47, again, the kingdom of heaven, again, the promised kingdom in the Old Testament that Christ came to bring. He was bringing them salvation, and they rejected it. As unto a net that was cast into the sea and gathered of every kind. I'm thinking fish here. Verse 48, which when it was full, the net, they drew to shore and sat down and gathered good into the vessels and cast away the bad. So apparently they looked at the fish or whatever they caught and kept what was sellable or edible and threw away that wasn't. It was distinct. It was one or the other. It was clear to these professional fishermen, I assume professionals. Verse 49, so it shall be at the end of the world, so Christ's second coming, the angel shall come forth and sever the wicked among the just, and shall cast them, the wicked, into the furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth, otherwise God's wrath and punishment for their sin and being unjust. Now, who are the unjust versus the good? That's an important question. Salvation and justification come by faith in Jesus Christ and his death and resurrection. We're talking about the times that the church, so is after his death and resurrection and ascension and the beginning of the church. So salvation is always by faith, but church-based believers have the regeneration to a new person. They have the Holy Spirit, so they are able and they're considered just by God, and they act that way, even though we all still sin. A truly regenerated person can't help themselves but to act in spiritual ways because it's their nature. So the angels, in looking at these people, can see who's regenerated, who's not, and they act upon them accordingly. So the regeneration here in the Holy Spirit is the key for this time. And these people say by faith. Okay, so it's a warning to the listeners and educational. Now the angels here, this parable is also like that of the wheat and the tares. The angels also come and separate the wheat and the tares and cast the tares into the burning fire. How does this differ? Well, a tare is in the assembly acting like a believer, and it's hard to tell them apart. So here the bad wicked are not in the assembly. It's easy to tell them apart. But unbelievers will be found in both places in the mystery form of the kingdom, and they will be punished, the tares and the wicked. In a sense, the tares are the wicked too, because even though in the church and maybe saying some good things and doing some good things, they don't really practice righteousness, and they don't practice spiritual discipline or acts. They're not trusting God. Okay, so what have you learned? In the times of the church, there'll be wicked that will be separated from the just, those who are justified by faith alone, in the death and resurrection of Christ at the end times, and they will receive a punishment for their sin. Okay, thanks for joining me today. We'll conclude. We're done with the 7 parables. We have one more left to go as a closeout, and we close out this important chapter. So in 1 or 2 more videos. I'm glad you're here today. I hope you'll join me next time.